recognized that it's not really so much about, is this the right decision or is that the right decision? But what's most important is your belief in a decision. What's most important is your confidence in a decision and you wholeheartedly pursuing the action that follows making that decision. Hey yo, what is up? My name is Nat and I am your mindset coach, here to support you in shifting your internal world so that you're showing up that much more powerfully in your external world, specifically in regards to your business. Welcome to another YouTube teaching. Every single Sunday, 6 p.m. PST, there's a new teaching that's dropping, and I'm so excited to dive into the topic of overthinking on today's mindset teaching. Overthinking is a pattern that so many of us do, so I'm excited to teach you guys and to show you some insight on how is overthinking actually helpful, why do we do it, and how can we shift into a different way, a different pattern, a different way of thinking that's going to benefit us more than the anxiety and the worry and the intensity that often comes with overthinking. So go ahead and grab something to write with or something to take notes with, and we'll get started in just a second. But before we do, I want to do a quick little review of last week's teaching. Last week we talked about discouragement, my favorite ways to shift when you're feeling discouraged, which is a very normal thing to feel and to experience when we're building our own businesses and really paving our own way. So discouragement's something that pops up, and most of us are going to get derailed by discouragement, and I'm here to give you some insight and some mindset shifts on how to shift back into your truth, shift back into your power, and really not let some of those discouraging thoughts derail you too much. So go ahead and I will tag that replay up here for you guys. And as always, if you aren't subscribed yet to my YouTube channel, it would mean so very much to me for you to go ahead and subscribe. I post new videos every single Sunday, and so you'll get notified. And I also just love connecting with you guys, and I also love hearing from you. So if there's ever anything specific that you want to learn more about, or a mindset topic that you'd like me to cover on these teachings, please don't hesitate to reach out to me on either Instagram or TikTok or Facebook, or even down in the comments below. I love hearing from you guys. Give me some feedback. Let me know what's serving you. Let me know how your homework is going. And again, I love hearing from you, and make sure you're subscribed. But without further ado, let's go ahead and let's dive into today's topic of overthinking. So we're going to talk about, what does overthinking look like in our online businesses? Why do we do it? What does it actually do? How does it get in the way? And what might help instead? So what does overthinking sound like and look like for so many of us? And I'd love to hear from you guys. What is an example of what overthinking looks like in your business as it gets in the way of your action taking, in the way of how you're showing up? Oh, I'm going to sneeze. Excuse me. So here are some examples. Overthinking looks like feeling like you have to prepare for every single scenario. You're ever overthinking about all the different things that could go wrong or all the different things that could go right, and you're constantly feeling like you have to prepare for every single possibility. It also looks like second guessing if you're making the right decisions in your business. There's no one right way to build your business. All of us have different businesses, and we all have different personalities. There's different ways for us to generate leads. There's different ways for us to sell and to make sales and to do sales calls, or to maybe not do sales calls. There's so many different ways to run businesses, and so many of us get caught up in, is this the right way? Should I do it this way? Or is this the right way? Or is that the right way? And we're constantly second guessing when we're overthinking. Another example is we're constantly trying to avoid making mistakes. As an overthinker, you're always scared of making mistakes. You're always scared of, oh my gosh, what if this happens? What if that happens? I don't want to make this mistake. I don't want to find myself in this predicament. So whenever we are overthinking, we're avoiding mistakes a lot of the time. So I do also want to say that overthinking happens a lot as a stress response. So whenever you're finding yourself in stressful situations or you're finding yourself stressed out about different things that are happening in your business, overthinking might come into play more often as a stress response. And also, as with all other patterns that we've talked about, it's a protective mechanism. So it will come up when you're growing. You'll find yourself overthinking more as a way to protect yourself, as a way to make sure that you're staying in your comfort zone. So notice that overthinking is the same as the procrastination pattern, the same as a burnout and overwhelm pattern. It's another way to protect us and to keep us safe. That's why it pops up. So why is it that we do overthinking? Why is it that we allow it? Why is it that we lean into it sometimes? Why is it that it's such a common part of it takes up so much mental space? Why is it that we do it? Well, number one, we think that it helps and we think that it is equipping us. So what it sounds like in our head is if I overthink, then I'm prepared. As long as I'm overthinking about all the different things that might happen, I feel prepared. And so as long as I'm overthinking, I am equipped. And so overthinking is a good thing for me. Another reason why we do it, like I mentioned before, is we think that it protects us. And what it sounds like in our heads is if I overthink, then if worst case scenario happens, I'll know what to do. This is a big one that I hear with so many of my clients. We think that as long as we're overthinking about all the different ways that things could go wrong, then if it does go wrong, we'll feel prepared to be able to handle it. Another reason why we do overthinking is because we're used to it. So many of us are used to overthinking. We've been overthinking our whole lives. I just had a call with a client last week and I talked to her. I was like, when did this pattern start? When can you identify that you were an overthinker? And she's like, honestly, since I was a kid, my brother would tell me all the time, stop overthinking. So she's been doing it for decades. And so the reason why we continue to be overthinkers and have this overthinking pattern is because we've gotten used to it. And so what it sounds like in our head is if I don't overthink, then I'll be underprepared or I'll be anxious. And because I'm not used to feeling anything besides overthinking, I'm going to just keep overthinking. And then finally, another reason why we continue to perpetuate this overthinking pattern is because we were taught that it was best. So an example of what it might sound like in our heads is mom told me that if I think of all scenarios, I'll never fail. I'll never fall short. And maybe the reason why our parents are the people that teach us these things without us really even realizing that they're teaching it to us, the reason why they're teaching it to us is because they have had some unfavorable circumstances. So they project onto us their experiences and they teach us these different patterns and these different mental habits, thinking that it's going to help us. And maybe to a certain degree, it does help us, but then we get further along in our lives and growing our businesses and we find ourselves perpetuating these patterns like overthinking. And we're thinking to ourselves, why do I think this way? It's, because someone else told me that this is how I should operate because it did serve them, or maybe they wish they would have done that. And so I keep doing it and utilizing it because I think it's helpful, but it gets to a point where you realize that it's getting in the way. And when you realize that it's starting to get in the way, you get to realize, this pattern, this habit, this mental habit, you know what? It's not helping me anymore. Let me utilize a different tool. So those are some examples of why we perpetuate this overthinking pattern. And before I dive into what actually overthinking perpetuates and how it's not helpful, I do want to say that with all of these mental habits, procrastination, imposter syndrome, overthinking, overwhelm, perfectionism, all these different patterns that we perpetuate, I call them mental habits. So many of us like to divert to seeing them as bad, or I shouldn't do this. But in the process of healing and shifting these mental habits and these ways of thinking, it's important to recognize that they did actually serve us up until one point. I'll use myself as an example with perfectionism. Perfectionism growing up for me was a great pattern. It helped me get really great grades. It helped me excel in school and in piano playing. It really served me powerfully for a lot of my life. But then I got into a different season of my life, starting my business, growing my business, where this perfectionism tool that worked really well for me my whole life, now at this up level in my life, I realized that it wasn't serving me anymore and that it was getting in the way of the success I wanted to achieve. So just from then outside looking in, not making anything good or bad, just seeing it as this pattern used to serve me, but now it's not serving me that well, so let me shift into another pattern. Once we realize that just the things that we perpetuate mentally are tools that we utilize that served us up until a certain point, but we can actually shift them by realizing there are different tools that we can utilize to grow, makes it so much easier for us to shift into something new and also take this heavy weight of guilt that we often carry with being perfectionist or having imposter syndrome or being procrastinators. There's nothing bad about that. We can just throw to the side any type of good versus bad. We can just see it as this pattern served me up until a point in my life, and that's okay. Now I'm ready for a new pattern. Makes it so much easier to shift because we're not bringing guilt and shame and good versus bad into the equation. So I just wanted to say that really quick. It just popped up into my brain and I felt like that was for someone and maybe multiple of you. So let me know if that resonated and let me know if it made it easier for you guys to really be able to grasp that one way of thinking might have served you up until a point, and that's okay. But we can also decide we want to think new things and have new mental habits and shift into them and have them be more useful. Okay, cool. So what does overthinking in a way that's not helpful, what does it actually do? So overthinking in a way that is dysfunctional, it keeps us paralyzed or it holds us back to a certain degree. So we'll use overthinking as a pattern to make sure that as long as we're overthinking, we think we're being prepared, but really we're constantly postponing. And in some ways, we might even be fueling procrastination. So that's how overthinking can be a bit hurtful. Another reason why we perpetuate overthinking is we think it's comfortable. Kind of like I mentioned before, it's something that we're used to and it's something that allows us to stay in our comfort zone. Another way that overthinking can not be the most supportive is that it constantly keeps us in a state of doubt. So when you're constantly second guessing your decisions, you're never fully confident in moving forward with something and you're doubting yourself, and operating from doubt isn't the most supportive emotion and supportive place to operate from. Another way that overthinking can get in the way of things is it keeps you from being fully confident and fully certain. Kind of like I mentioned before, it also keeps you from fully trusting yourself, trusting your intuition and trusting your decisions. If you're constantly overthinking, is this the right decision? Is that the right decision? I need to overthink this scenario. I need to think about this scenario. Whenever you're constantly seesawing between, is this the right decision? Is that the right decision? You're never giving yourself the opportunity to be fully confident in a decision. And from my experience coaching people for almost 7 years now, I've recognized that it's not really so much about, is this the right decision or is that the right decision? But what's most important is your belief in a decision. What's most important is your confidence in a decision and you wholeheartedly pursuing the action that follows making that decision. And when you're boldly taking action from a place of fully believing in the decision that you've made, regardless if it's the right one or the wrong one, when you're boldly taking action, then your results are going to far exceed the results that you would have from a shaky, uncertain place. So overthinking gets in the way of you fully putting your belief into the decisions that you're making and being fully confident in what you're pursuing in your business. That's probably the biggest one. And that's the one that if there's one big takeaway that I want you guys to take from this teaching, it's going to be that, to realize that your overthinking is not allowing you to really insert powerful belief into your decisions. A few more ways that overthinking gets in the way is it keeps you from fully showing up as your most authentic and your empowered self. If you're second guessing yourself, you're never fully showing up as you unapologetically. And then finally, it also keeps you from giving your clients the best you. Your clients deserve the best you. And if you're constantly overthinking, is this what they need? Is that what they need? Is this what I should do for them? Is that what I should do for them? When you are showing up from a place of uncertainty or not being fully, boldly believing in what you have to offer, then your clients aren't going to receive the full you. Your clients aren't going to receive the most passionate, the most excited, the most certain, the most bold, the most decisive version of you. And your clients deserve that version of you. Your clients deserve you fully, wholeheartedly believing in what you do. And let's say you do make a mistake. whenever I've made mistakes in my coaching business, it's really just an opportunity for me to show up with even more integrity, with even more honesty, and with me really being able to show my clients that, hey, I'm not perfect. I made this mistake, but I want to go ahead and make sure that you know that I care about you. So this is how I'm going to go ahead and rectify that mistake. And every time I've done that, clients actually build more trust with me. Clients actually really believe in knowing that I was the right decision for them, because when someone sees us respond to a mistake, that's arguably more important than rectifying the mistake itself. So overthinking keeps you from giving your clients the best you, and they truly deserve that. So what would actually help instead? I'm sitting on my knees, and I don't know why I did that, because now my feet fell asleep, but let's go ahead, let's adjust. Oh, now I'm really low. That's okay. Side note, we just got home from a trip to Argentina, Uruguay, and Brazil. And there's this little farmer's market where this woman was making these handmade pillow covers. And of course, there was one with weenies, and I had to get it. I normally don't film in our bedroom, but my boyfriend's here and he's doing some things in the kitchen and in my workspace. So I came and did today's teaching from the bedroom, so you guys can see our bed, and it has our cute little weenie pillow right there, which I'm absolutely obsessed with. And isn't it so incredibly cute? But okay, cool. So wrapping up, what would help instead of overthinking? Maybe overthinking does help us in certain scenarios here and there. Maybe overthinking helps us a lot when we're in escape rooms, or maybe overthinking helps us a lot when we are in different high intensity situations that aren't super common, but it might help. And maybe overthinking has helped you in the past, but now you're ready to shift into something else. Now you're ready to not allow overthinking to get in the way. Like I mentioned in some of those reasons earlier, what might actually help instead? So I have 7 different points that would help instead, and your homework is going to be to pick 1 or 2 of these to really embrace this next week. When you find yourself overthinking, I want you to lean into 1 or 2 of these different options instead of overthinking. And a lot of the time, the thing that allows us to shift out of a pattern that isn't helpful, a pattern like overthinking, the thing that allows us to shift into something else is just awareness that it's not really helping us that much, and shifting into something that might be more helpful. So out of these 7 different points of what might be more helpful, I want you to lean into 1 or 2 of them this week, and I would love to hear from you on how it goes. So number 1, what might help instead of overthinking? Trusting your skills, talent, and your expertise. Every single one of you has a unique set of gifts, talents, personalities. Some of you have been doing what you're doing for a few years. Some of you have been doing it for a few months. Some of you have been doing it for several years or several decades. No matter where you're at in your journey, chances are that you have some tools that someone else doesn't have. And the sooner that you own that you can utilize those tools and utilize those tools to help them, the sooner someone else can be served and helped by that. So you trusting and knowing that you're valuable and that the skills that you have is valuable, is going to feel so much better than constantly doubting your skills and constantly doubting your value. So that's number 1. Number 2, what might actually help instead of overthinking is trusting your intuition. Your intuition is like a superpower. Your intuition is something that you can get better and better at refining. And I really started leaning into trusting my intuition more and more. And was I wrong sometimes with my intuition, because my intuition's being defined more and more as I grow older and as I continue to work it more? Absolutely, there were times where my intuition was off. But every single time I recognized, oh, actually, I was wrong about that, was just an opportunity for me to refine my intuition and be like, oh, okay, I can look back on how I made that decision, how maybe that wasn't truly the best one, but now I know what it looks like in the future for me to make an even more refined decision. So giving yourself grace to make mistakes, giving yourself grace to really practice utilizing your intuition is so much more valuable than constantly perpetuating this overthinking pattern that leaves you feeling overwhelmed and indecisive and not feel fully embodying and believing in what you're offering. So that's number 2. Number 3, seeing mistakes as opportunities of growth instead of seeing them as signs of failure. So big shift for me was noticing that in my business, as I grow it, I'm going to make mistakes. And I decided very early on in my business that there was no such thing as failure, and that failure didn't exist. And every single time I fell short or I made a mistake or a challenge came up, I really just started seeing it as an opportunity for growth. And if I really look back on the past 7 years of growing this business, every single time I made a mistake, I got a new tool in my toolbox. Every single time things didn't go how I planned, I got a tool in my toolbox, and I became a better coach and a better business owner for that. And so you can start, whether you're early on in your business or whether you've been doing this for years and years, you can really start embracing, knowing and believing that every time something doesn't go the way that you expect it, it's okay. You're learning and you're going to be able to be so much more equipped because of what you're going through. So instead of overthinking, we can start seeing challenges as growth as opposed to seeing them as signs of failure. This was a big one for me. That was number 3. Number 4. Give yourself permission to prepare without obsessing. So my perfectionist pattern, also coupled with my overthinking pattern, loved obsessing about what I need to prepare. At one point, I remember when I was doing sales calls, I had sticky notes for 25 different objections that might come up on a sales call all around me. And I felt so prepared with all of those sticky notes. But when I really look back on it, I never actually ended up going and looking at one of those sticky notes. I was just obsessed with making sure that I was prepared for any case scenario. And when it came down to it, when I was on the phone with somebody and I had to handle their objections, I wasn't sitting there looking for the different ways to handle an objection. I had to just act right there, then and there on the spot, trust myself, and talk through someone and their questions on a sales call. And so once I learned that, you know what, I actually don't have to obsess about this. I can do it if I want. I can be prepared if I want to really practice my objection handling, to practice different elements of my business, but it's not absolutely necessary. It took massive amounts of pressure off of me needing to 100%, 110% be prepared for every case scenario. So give yourself permission to prepare and know that more times than not, actually, I can't think of a time where I didn't fully prepare and things just went horribly wrong. Just know that you can still prepare 90%, 80%, things will still be okay. Things will still work out. And even if they don't, going back to number 3, chances are you'll still grow from it. Number 5, trust that everything is working out even if it doesn't feel like it is. This was a foundational belief for me that I inserted into my business very, very early on, where I believe that everything's working out in my favor. Even when it doesn't feel like things are working out in my favor, everything's working out in my favor. And a lot of people called me naive for having this perspective. A lot of people thought that this perspective was unrealistic, but this perspective actually helped me to get through some really challenging times. And when my mind was set on seeing how this was working out in my favor, when something icky was happening, I was able to find things that were working out in my favor because that's what my mind was focused on. A little bit of a science moment here. One sec. Our brain has this thing called the reticular activating system, RAS. And when we are focused on seeing something or when we are focused on thinking a specific thing or honing in or focusing on one thing, our brain, the reticular activating system, will then make sure that it is hyper aware of our external world to find proof of the thing that we've decided we want to focus on. So when I was hell bent on focusing on how things are working out in my favor, my reticular activating system was on it. My reticular activating system was scanning my environment, scanning my interactions, making sure that I was always finding proof of how things are working out in my favor. And guess what? I found them. And guess what? It was so much easier to then get through a situation because I was choosing to focus on how things were always working out in my favor. So that's available to you too. That's number 5. Number 6, another thing that would help more than overthinking is having a foundational belief. Oh wait, these are the same things. Sorry, my notes, I copied and pasted. That means there are only 6. Having a foundational belief that everything is working out in my favor and trusting that everything is working out even when it feels like it's not. Sorry, my bad. It's supposed to be only 6, not 7. I just copy and pasted in my notes the same thing twice. My B. So yes, that's the 5th one, is that one, really trusting everything's working out in your favor and having that foundational belief. finally, the last one, number 6, instead of overthinking, I want you to lean into trusting that you're supported, trusting that you can ask for help, and trusting also that you can problem solve your way through things. There's an element here of self-trust, but there's an element here of really trusting and knowing that you can find someone to help you even when it feels like things aren't working out how you want them to. So instead of overthinking and trying to figure things out your own way, number 6 is giving yourself permission to ask for help, and also giving yourself permission to know and to trust that if you don't know the answer, you'll be able to find it. You don't have to over prepare and overthink and over stress about things before they even happen. You can trust that if something comes up, you can ask for help. Honestly, I know so many people doing so many different things in the online space. If you need help with ads, reach out to me. I'll point you in the direction of someone. If you need help with having a social media audit, let me know. I could point you in the direction of someone. But you don't have to overthink in the process before you need help with those things. You don't have to overstress in the process before something happens. You can trust that when things pop up, you can ask for help, and you can also problem solve your way through them. So that's number 6. So again, just to review really quick, your homework is going to be to pick 1 or 2 of these alternate options. Instead of overthinking, try one of these 2 things. And as always, I love hearing from you guys. Let me know what 2 you pick. Let me know how it goes. Go ahead and comment down below what your choices are and how things go with your homework. I love, love, love hearing from you guys. And that's all I have for today's teaching. As always, I'm here to support you. I do have a one-time one-on-one call that comes with 7 days of voice message support. So if you are a new client or someone who is interested in working with me, know that that one-time call option is available to you just to try things out, just to get a head start on some stuff. And then from there, if you decide to do long-term coaching with me, you get to credit that payment towards long-term coaching. So please know that is available to you. It's linked down in the show notes. And then of course, I'm available for long-term coaching. So please let me know if you have questions about that. Feel free to email me. Feel free to message me in one of the social medias that I've linked down below. I love hearing from you guys. And as always, please let me know what else you'd like to learn. Please let me know how else I can support you and what other topics you'd like to learn more about here on these YouTube teachings. And I will see you guys next Sunday at 6 p.m. PST for a new teaching. Keep up the amazing work. I'm so proud of you, and I'll see you guys next week. Have a great week. Bye.